Hello and welcome to day number 9 in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Signum University Summer Reading Camp. Welcome. It is lovely to be here again. Ms. Raimondo is still not quite well enough to present, so I will be taking her slides again and we'll look through them together and see what we find. And let's get started. All right. Well, first of all, I do want to do a little bit of a recap on where we are because yesterday's chapters were quite emotional for me. So I want to make sure we understand what the White Witch is thinking at this point. Here she is in Narnia. She is controlling the land with her power and her wand. She knows of the prophecies, and we heard about those prophecies from the beavers back in chapter 8 about when Aslan comes, spring will come again, winter will be over. When Adam's flesh and bones is enthroned, the evil will be done. And of course, the specific prophecy that when the sons of Adam and the sons of daughters of Adam, the daughters of Adam sit on the thrones at Cair Paravel, the witch's reign will not only end, but her life will end. So she knows these prophecies. She has had her agents out in the land. Mr. Tumnus, sadly, was one of those, knowing that if there were ever any humans coming, that they should be reported. So she knows, she's on guard. She gets Edmund in her control, but she's greedy. She wants them all. So she tries to track them down. So we get the chase, but Aslan comes, spring is coming, and she's thwarted. Thwarted means she's stopped. Her plans, her designs, her goals, everything is ceased. She doesn't have that chance anymore. So she comes and she has this brainwave, this idea. I have the law behind me. Now she's wicked. It's not like she wants to follow the law because she has any virtue in her whatsoever. She's using the law, the deep magic established, so that she can get what she wants, which is at least Edmund. At least she can get the traitor and she can kill the traitor and thereby try to stop the prophecy. Okay, so she comes. Thank you. I'm sorry, Bella, you're right. The daughters of Eve. It is the sons of Adam and the daughters of Eve. Thank you. So she comes to Aslan to parley, to have this talk and claim her right to the traitor according to the law. That's all she's expecting. That's where she thinks she's going to stop the prophecy. But Aslan pulls her aside, and as we've seen in chapter 14, offers up himself instead. And to her limited mind, she thinks she has won everything, which is why she calls him a fool. It's why she thinks that she doesn't stop to think in truth. She thinks she's won it all. Because when she kills Aslan, she knows how vulnerable the rest of the children are going to be. Now, she knows there's going to be a fight. She thinks she and her, as there is, as we will see, she thinks she's going to have to defeat them. But she's pretty confident that she's going to be able to kill them all and thus stop the prophecy from coming true. But here's the thing about prophecies. If it's a prophecy, if it's a true prophecy, can you ever stop it? Can it ever be truly stopped? Maybe delayed, but can it be stopped? So I wanted to just a little recap because I was so caught up in the emotion of poor Aslan being sacrificed that I didn't cover those details specifically. So that's where we're at. All right, let's see what the slides are today from Miss Raimondo. Chapter 15, which is actually entitled Deeper Magic from Before the Dawn of Time. Okay, so here we are. The life behind the law. Let's see. The long, dark night. and what they did through it. Let's see what happens here. All right. Minimizing fear and emboldening sorrow. Do you know what emboldening means? The root there is bold, not shivering, hiding, weak, pulling back. Bold. The beginning there for the EM, emboldening, means you instill something, you make it happen, you put it into something. So we are minimizing fear and emboldening sorrow. So sorrow is not a bad thing. Let's see. That's what I get from that title. All right, here we go. This is the witch. Now, follow me all, and we will set about what remains of this war. It will not take us long to crush the human vermin and the traitors, now that the great fool, the great cat, lies dead. At this moment, the children were, for a few seconds, in very great danger. For with wild cries and noise of skirling pipes and shrill horns blowing, the whole of that vile rabble came sweeping off the hilltop and down the slope right past their hiding place. They felt the specters go by them like a cold wind, and they felt the ground shake beneath them under the galloping feet of the minotaurs. And overhead there went a flurry of foul wings and a blackness of vultures and giant bats. At any other time, they would have trembled with fear, but now the sadness and the shame and horror of Aslan's death so filled their minds that they hardly thought of it. So they're so sad, they're not even afraid. It's so overwhelming that even these horrors, the specters, and think of the other things that were in the list, the boggles and the cruels and all of those horrible things, it didn't even faze them anymore. They were so shocked by the sorrow of what they saw and the horror of what they saw at Aslan's death. Let's see what happens now. I know I was in the book, reading the book. Oh, here's a question she poses, Ms. Raimondo. How does the White Witch's delight in what is bad make her fearful? That's one question. Now here is fearful. Is she still afraid of the children? Is she fearful as in scary? I think maybe she's still fearful. She knows she has to go and kill the other children to stop the prophecy, or at least defeat some of them. But perhaps it makes her fearful because she's so terrifyingly evil. There's nothing about her that seems to be at all have any connection with anything that's good. So if you want to write in your comments or your thoughts, how does the White Witch's delight in what is bad make her fearful? Maybe she assumes, and this is going back to the idea that she is afraid, maybe she assumes that everyone else is like her. They're looking to get ahead. They're looking to defeat the bad guy, or defeat their opponent. Let's put it that way. Anybody who crosses them, it's her mindset that she needs to defeat completely anybody who crosses her. Okay. How does the delight, or how does the girls' delight in what is good make them bold? Let's see. How does it make them bold? They're not exactly bold at the moment. They're still hiding, but they're not as afraid by the creatures that are coming past them. Let's move on and see. Ah, the little gray things. Ah, here is a comment. Let me see. This is from Sparrow. Delight in what is bad, so the bad things are filling her heart, so her heart can never reach toward joy. Very good thought. Thank you, Sparrow. That's true. If what she's filled herself with is so bad, there's no room for anything that's good or joyful or positive. Very good. Thank you. Jubilee says, I would think both. So she's fearful as in afraid and fearful as in, oh, terrifying. Because she is afraid of the prophecy coming to fruition and will do anything in her power to go to the extreme limits to get rid of them. I think this is why she is both. Yes, I think that's a good thought, Jubilee. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about the little gray things. What are the little gray things? But at last, Lucy noticed two other things. One was that the sky on the east side of the hill was a little less dark than it had been an hour ago. The other was some tiny movement going on in the grass at her feet. At first, she took no interest in this. What did it matter? Nothing mattered now. But at last, she saw that whatever it was had begun to move up the upright stones of the stone table. And now whatever they were moving about on Aslan's body. She peered closer. They were little gray things. So she's in the midst of her sorrow, and she notices two things. And this, oh my friends, is something that I find so encouraging for myself. The first thing she noticed was that the sky on the east side of the hill was a little less dark than it had been an hour ago. What does that mean? If the sky is no longer dark, what does that mean? It means the morning is coming. Time is moving. The next day is here. And when you have a next day, when you have a future, it just seems a little bit hopeful. It seems like something can happen in a new day that didn't happen before, that could bring you hope out of the darkness. I like that very much. Let's see, Jubilee says, it means morning is coming soon. Very true. I find that encouraging in my life. And so when I read this, it always reminds me of the encouragement I feel if I've had a very terrible night or a worrisome time. When the sun comes up in the morning, it is encouraging. All right, but for Lucy at this time, she is so sad. She thinks, what does it matter? Nothing matters at this point. But she notices those little gray things. Let's find out about those little gray things. All right, they don't realize he's dead. Ugh, said Susan from the other side of the table. How beastly! There are hard little mice crawling over him. Go away, you little beasts! And she raised her hand to frighten them away. Wait, said Lucy, who had been looking at them more closely still. Can you see what they're doing? Both girls bent down and stared. I do believe, said Susan. But how queer, they're nibbling away at the cords. That's what I thought, said Lucy. I think they're friendly mice. Poor little things, they don't realize he's dead. They think it'll do some good untying him. Okay, so Lucy again is our close looker, a person who sees behind what first appearances may be. She sees what they're doing. She doesn't react as Susan does, to be recoiling in disgust at mice. A lot of times in most places, mice are considered vermin because they are problematic. They do eat your food and mess things up with their droppings and things. So, and they carry disease. So mice are considered vermin in most places. But remember, this is Narnia. So suspend your expectations for animals, right? So Lucy noticed that they were doing something intentional, which was nibbling away at the cords. But she thinks that they are doing something useless, pointless, because maybe the little mice don't realize that Aslan is dead. But is he? Do they know something that Lucy and Susan don't? Were they motivated and moved by some Narnia magic impulse to free him? Or was it perhaps a sign of respect? Maybe the mice knew who Aslan is and was. And it was a sign of respect to free him from the bonds, the ropes that had tied him. I'm never quite sure. Do you think? What do you think? Let's see what we have here. Oh, and here is the illustration. Look at that. Oh. I like how not only is it dark in that scene because the morning genuinely hasn't come yet, but it's so dark and you can see the sorrow on the girls' faces as the mice are coming and nibbling. Look at how they hold Aslan and all the dark hatching, the darkness around them. It is a very sorrowful picture of sorrow. All right. Here's another question from Ms. Raimondo. That was the question I asked. We're on the same page, right? Do you think the mice thought Aslan was dead? Do you think it is important that it is getting lighter outside? What does this have to do with hope? Hope. Hope in the face of what looks to be certain disaster. Hope is when you have some tiny sliver of expectation that something could go right, that something could change in something that's in a situation that's so sorrowful. What does it mean to you? What do you think? I've told you what I think. I think when the light comes in the morning, it's encouraging because there's a new day and something good may happen in it, that I can do something that will make things better. But truly, for Lucy and Susan, what hope could they have? What hope could they have? But for us as readers, we see that light. So maybe C.S. Lewis is trying to give us a hint that it's not as bad as we think. With the little mice coming to chew up the cords, maybe C.S. Lewis was trying to give the readers a hint that there's something more coming. Don't despair. The story's not over yet. Let's see, I've got some responses. Sparrow says, maybe the mice don't think why. They just know the ropes are wrong. And this is one thing they could do for Aslan, whom they love. Yeah, that's like what I was saying about how out of respect and honor, knowing that those ropes should not be there and showing him that respect and honor and doing what's right, even in the face of this complete disaster, they're still doing what is right. I agree, Sparrow. That's a great point. That's very encouraging. No matter how bad things are, you can still find something that is good and uplifting and right to do. All right, here we go. The light and the song. The light and the song. The sky in the east was whitish now, and the stars were getting fainter, all except one very big one low down in the eastern horizon. They felt colder than they had been all night. The mice crept away again. The girls cleared away the remains of the gnawed ropes. Aslan looked more like himself without them. Every moment his dead face looked nobler as the light grew and they could see it better. In the wood behind them, a bird gave a chuckling sound. It had been so still for hours and hours that it startled them. Then another bird answered it. Soon there were birds singing all over the place. It was quite definitely early morning now, not late night. Okay, what do we see here? What do we see C.S. Lewis is using to gradually bring us into this sense of being uplifted and maybe having hope? If you're reading the book for the first time and you don't know the end of the story, and this horrible, horrible thing has just happened, these images of the increasing light and the mice coming and cutting the cords and the girls clearing the ropes away and seeing his face in the growing light, dispelling, pushing away, getting rid of, dispelling the grimness and the brutality of what happened that last night, even as he lay there dead. The ideas, the images that C.S. Lewis is giving to the reader is there could be hope. There could be something else. The birds are singing. That doesn't sound like utter and complete disaster. Something might be happening, but it's almost too much to imagine if you've never read the story before and you don't know how it's going to go, how it's going to turn out. So it's very important and interesting to see how the author uses the surroundings and the setting to convey a sense of hope, a sense of things changing, not just in a literal sense like the spring, when the spring was coming and the flowers are blooming. Okay, that means spring is here. There's green on the trees. Yes, that means spring is here. There is grass. That means spring is here. We get that. That's very, very exact and literal. This is more an image. This is a feeling. This is a sort of a sneak peek at what's coming in a way that's not saying Aslan is not going to stay dead. There is hope. He doesn't say that. He uses the light and the song of the birds to tell us this as we're reading. All right, let's see. Look at this. Why do I should go to the next slide before I start talking. Why do you think C.S. Lewis spends so much time describing the light? Maybe I just said it, right? What could the light be pointing to here? Okay, exactly, just as I was suggesting. The light is showing that it's not the end, there's more to the story, and that there is something perhaps to hope for. Okay, that the night is coming to an end. Both the night of the terror and the nightmare and the literal night. It is coming to be morning. All right, let's move on. There was no Aslan. Okay. At that moment, they heard from behind them a loud noise, a great cracking, deafening noise, as if a giant had broken a giant's plate. "What's that?" said Lucy, clutching Susan's arm. "I feel afraid to turn around," said Susan. "Something awful is happening." "They're doing something worse to him," said Lucy. "Come on." And she turned, pulling Susan round with her. The rising of the sun had made everything look so different. All colors and shadows were changed that for a moment they didn't see the important thing. Then they did. The stone table was broken into two pieces by a great crack that ran down it from end to end, and there was no Aslan. So the birds and the light distracted Susan and Lucy. Apparently they turned away. They were not looking at Aslan anymore. They even perhaps moved away from the stone table and were not touching him or pulling the cords away anymore. They actually had turned their attention away to the birds. And in that moment, the sun had risen, the stone table cracked, and Aslan disappeared. Whoops, we have one other comment. Let me see. Jubilee suggests, back with the light, Lewis is showing that there is still hope. Aslan could be the light because he was the hope and light to others in despair, like the beavers. Very true. So are you saying, Jubilee, that the light and Aslan are kind of the same thing? The coming of the light brings hope. The coming of Aslan brings hope. The coming of the light ends the night. The coming of Aslan ends the night terror reign of the witch. Yeah. So it's like they are a symbol, a representation of each other. Very nice. Very good thought. Thank you, Jubilee. Thank you. Let's see. Jubilee, yes, I got that right. Okay, great. Beck says he will come back. Okay, that's a sign from that. Yes. And Sparrow is suggesting, I noticed that Susan was really afraid. Okay, so we're talking about this slide now, this passage. I noticed that Susan was really afraid and that she needed Lucy to help her face the next scary thing. The siblings need to stick together. Thank you, Sparrow. Excellent point. Throughout the whole story, it seems like we have seen each of the siblings are brothers and sisters, you know this, have kind of a specific role, and they do their role in the story. They perform their role, but they also have personalities. They also have strengths, and they also have weaknesses. And we might see in this moment that, as Sparrow says, Susan is kind of afraid. But sometimes when the person that you're with has a weakness, like being afraid, being more fearful, it allows you, excuse me, to be the strong one, to step up. If that's your skill, you step up. And that's what Lucy did. She stepped up, and she was an encouragement, and she was brave, and she was strong for Susan and encouraged her. It's a very good point, Sparrow. So that's one of those takeaways. You can look at your relationships and the people around you, whether it's your family or your friends, maybe in your classroom at school, and you can see where somebody else might have a weakness or a tendency to maybe not have a certain skill or character trait. And you do. You can help. You can step up. You can offer. They may still reject your help. Just saying, they can still say no. But you can start to see, what skills do I have? What strengths do I have that I can offer to other people to fill in the gaps? And the other thing you can do is you can think to yourself, where am I weak? Where do I need help? Where do I need to accept assistance and help from others who might have a characteristic or a strength that I don't have? Good point, Sparrow. Thank you so much. There are so many tiny little lessons we can get from just every little bit of this book. I love it. All right, let's see. Did we anticipate her? Oh, well, then, of course, we have to note that Aslan is not there. The great crack runs down the table. Let's not move ahead. We skipped one thing. Very important. Good grief. I'm glad I saw that last sentence again before I went on. The stone table is broken. The stone table represented the law, the deep magic. That was the place where this kind of now Aslan was a sacrifice, but had the witch maintained control of Edmund, and had she been given Edmund, it was a place of execution to satisfy the law. He was a traitor. He should have been given to the White Witch, and that stone table was a symbol of the law, and it looks like it was a place for that type of carrying out the law to happen. But now it's broken. What does that mean? What are we supposed to think about that? I know we know because we kind of read the rest of the book already, but I think, of course, that is a symbol. That's a sign, I should say, that the law, that deep magic, has somehow been broken, stopped, changed. That's the word I want. It's been changed. Because remember, Aslan, when Lucy suggested, oh, can't we do something to work against the law? Can we work against it? And he was, no, there is no working against the law. The law is the law. We don't work against it. So we know that nothing has happened to go against the law, but somehow The law has been changed. That stone table is broken. The law is changed. So now we get to see what happens. Death working backward and what it looks like. I love this illustration. Look at this illustration. This is one of the original pieces of artwork, and this was the cover of the book as it was first published. And it shows Lucy and Susan cavorting, for lack of a better word. I mean, that's the perfect word. They are cavorting, and cavorting means to dance around, hop and tumble and celebrate. That is cavorting. That's another word, and I think Lewis uses it as gamboling. I'm not sure if it's in the passage we're going to be reading, but gamboling means dancing around. To gamble is a kind of dance. I think a gamble is a kind of dance. A middle dance from the Middle Ages is a gamble. And so gambling means you're dancing and cavorting around. All right, let's read on. Was it more magic? Who's done it? Cried Susan. What does it mean? Is it more magic? Yes, said a great voice behind their backs. It is more magic. They looked round. There, shining in the sunrise, larger than they had seen him before, shaking his mane, for it had apparently grown again, stood Aslan himself. Oh, Aslan, cried both the children, staring up at him, almost as much frightened as they were glad. Aren't you dead, then, dear Aslan? Said Lucy. Not now, said Aslan. Oh, I even got chills just reading it. I wish you could see or feel them. It gives me the chills every time. All right. So Susan immediately is alarmed. She's thinking someone has broken the stone table. Someone has taken Aslan, because she said, who's done it? Who did this? Like a person. Who came and broke this table? Who came and took Aslan? But then she says, what does it mean? And then she thinks, is it more magic? Is it more magic? And indeed, the answer is yes. Yes. Oh, I love this. But again, it's interesting because it is so amazing. It is so incredible that at first, the girls just stand and stare at him, almost as much frightened as they were glad. Why would they be frightened? Probably because it's completely unknown. Gambling, not gamble. Yes, you're right, Bella. When I was talking about gambling, it's not gambling like gambling with cards and money, or betting. It's gamble, meaning dance. Thank you, Bella. Sorry, we'll move on here. I just try to keep up with your questions and comments. Okay, back to this. So why? Why would they be almost as much frightened as they were glad? Well, I think for most of us, and I don't think it's wrong, or it's undesirable, I should say. Wrong means right and wrong. How about undesirable? It's not undesirable or somehow a problem if you are frightened of things that are amazing. If you are frightened of things that are beyond comprehension, beyond understanding. That's a genuine, real reaction to something that seems impossible, right? So that's why they're a little bit frightened. I'm not sure if they're actually frightened of Aslan, just perhaps that this is so strange and impossible, because just a few moments before, he was on the table dead, his mane gone, lifeless. And to then suddenly see him and to think, is this more magic? Maybe even they might have had a split second of doubt. See what Bella says. He was dead, so they probably thought he was a ghost. Right. They could think he was a ghost. Very good. Thank you, Bella. Yes, and Jubilee adds the same thing. They might have thought him to be a ghost. Another thought I had was maybe they thought it was some kind of trick, or maybe another lion, or some other inexplicable dangerous thing. Who knows? But yeah, they could have thought he was a ghost or it was a trick, because it's really, really difficult to go from something that seems very, very logical and goes with the facts of what you have seen, and to completely flip that. To completely flip that. This is almost like what we might call a miracle, because a miracle, with the word miracle, you get the idea that something that could not possibly happen happens. Okay? And that's hard. That's hard to process. So that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking too. Jubilee said it might have been an illusion. And Jubilee says maybe it was the lion in the witch's castle. Now, had the children seen the lion from the witch's castle at this point? They don't believe so. I think we know about it. Edmund knows about it. Maybe not so, but we know that there are other lions in Narnia. So maybe they thought it was another lion in Narnia. Yeah. Okay. Another, or something dressed as a lion. Beck, whoops, is suggesting. My microphone is attached to me. Sorry, people. Let's see. Yes, Edmund had seen the lion in the castle, right? But yeah, Beck says it could be somebody dressed as a lion. Okay. So at first, they're frightened, but they were also a bit glad. There was that opening in their heart and their minds, because what they saw before them was unmistakably Aslan. In fact, it was like Aslan 2.0, Aslan better, Aslan bigger, Aslan more Aslan, right? With his mane back and everything, larger than they had seen him before. All right. And again, we get the image that Lewis gives us of him shining in the sunrise. It's almost like he's glowing with the morning light. Great, great imagery there. Beautiful use of that. Let's move on. And here is an illustration of the broken stone table, which I think is very dramatic. It's very dramatic. You get the sunrise coming up and the jagged edges of the table of the stone up on the hillside. Okay. Let's see, other comments. Oh, I love all these comments. Good grief. All right, let me see. Bella is suggesting, you're hinting at another book here, Bella. Thank you very much. I'm not going to give that one away. Something about the last battle and a donkey. Jubilee suggests maybe Aslan came with the morning light. Yes, maybe it was the trigger of the morning light that day had come, and that was somehow a trigger of the magic that broke the law of the stone table and allowed Aslan to return, right? Bella loves this picture. I do too. And yes, Bella suggests meaning he was in the morning light. Thank you. Good comments, everybody. I love having you interact with me. Helps me a lot. All right, let's move on. But what does it all mean? Aslan's going to explain. Remember what the witch was thinking? That she was going to first get rid of the prophecy by killing Edmund. Then she thought that she had won the lottery by Aslan stupidly sacrificing himself, because now Aslan was going to be dead. There was going to be nothing to stop her from tracking down the other kids and killing them, right? So that's where her mind is. That's what she's thinking. Let's see what Aslan says. It means, said Aslan, that though the witch knew the deep magic, there is a magic deeper still which she did not know. Her knowledge goes back only to the dawn of time. But if she could have looked a little further back into the stillness and the darkness before time dawned, she would have read there a different incantation. She would have known that when a willing victim who had committed no treachery was killed in a traitor's stead, the table would crack and death itself would start working backward. And now, oh yes, now, said Lucy, jumping up and clapping her hands. Oh, children, said the lion, I feel my strength coming back to me. Oh, children, catch me if you can. I love it. I get chills. I get chills again. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's see. Yes, you love it so much, Beck. I do too. Bella's saying the witch is wrong. And Jubilee says if she had taken the time to learn it and know it, she would have realized she was the fool, not Aslan, except exactly. And Jubilee, it makes me excited. I know it does, doesn't it? Okay. All right. So let's pick this apart a little bit because there's some words in here that are kind of big and we want to make sure we know them all and really figure this out. Okay. So the witch knows deep magic, but there is magic deeper still. So that means her knowledge was limited. Okay. If she could have looked a little further back, she would know that there is a different incantation. An incantation, as you may or may not know, is an incantation is a phrase, words, a saying, something that is written down that has sort of a power to it, an authority to it. You could say because we're using the word magic here, because Lewis is using the word magic, then there's a magic attached to that incantation. It is part of the law. The law would be considered incantation simply because those words have power attached to them. Okay, so, and that was like the symbols on the stone table, presumably, were part of the law, the written law about the traitor and things like that. So there's a different incantation, a different set of rules that are powerful that kind of supersede. They have more power than just the other one that she was operating on. And that was the way it worked. That was the key. It says when a willing victim who had committed no treachery, Aslan, right? The willing victim, he offered himself in the place, was killed in a traitor's stead. Stead there, it means, well, we don't use the word stead very often, except when we use the word instead. So instead of Edmund, we get Aslan. And we have mushed the two words in and stead together to make one word, instead. Okay, so that's kind of one of those fun little word bits of knowledge that's nice to have. So Aslan was killed in the traitor Edmund's stead. The table, the law of the table, the power of the table would crack and death itself would start working backward. Start working backward. Okay, that's powerful. That's interesting. How does that work? Well, one thing, I'm going to just look ahead and see what Ms. Raimondo's questions might be on the next. Oh no, we go through another one. Let's talk about it a little bit, how this works. A traitor is someone who betrays someone else, that betrays what they are connected to, what they should be loyal to. A traitor, in this case, in Narnia, it sounds like the traitor, yes, Edmund was the traitor. He was willing to give up his brothers and sisters. But why is he like the traitor with a capital T? Well, because he was human. He was one of the sons of Adam who was supposed to come and rule Narnia, Cair Paravel, fulfill the prophecy. So that put him in a special position. So that's why he was the traitor with the capital T, and that's why it's all tied into the power of this world, because he had a position and he gave it up. Now, would you consider someone like Mr. Tumnus a traitor with capital T? I don't know. It might tie in later because Mr. Tumnus did die. I mean, he was made stone, right? All of those other creatures were turned to stone by the White Witch. Now, if you've read ahead, you know what happens, and that's the death working backwards. So it's not just Aslan whose death works backwards, but I think we're going to see that it's some of the other creatures' death working backwards too. So don't forget that when we get to the next chapter, be thinking about that, okay? I'm sure Ms. Raimondo will touch on it if she's teaching tomorrow, if she's feeling better, all right? So here we are. Let's see, we've got another, oh, more comments. Good grief, good grief, good grief. Let's see. Bella says she came into the world holding on. Oh, you're giving hints away from the magician's nephew. Does that mean Aslan was more powerful than the White Witch? That there was the deep magic? I'm not sure, Jubilee, you asked that and I was still talking, and so I'm not exactly sure what you mean. I think that Aslan, we can consider Aslan always more powerful than the White Witch. He's the son of the Emperor over the sea. She's an invader that had no business being there. She wasn't intending to do any good. She was only there to usurp, meaning take over what was not rightly hers. So I think we can assume that Aslan is always going to be more powerful than the White Witch. But because he had to work within the law, within the rules of the law, that's why he sacrificed himself and allowed himself to be taken by the White Witch. So I think he's always been. Let's see. Beck is saying that they love dancing and ballet. That's beautiful. Why didn't Aslan wake up slowly? If death started working backwards, then why didn't Aslan wake up slowly? I see. Well, that's an interesting question. It may be answered in two ways. One, it's just the choice of C.S. Lewis to have Aslan come back to life in a very big, exploding, powerful, he's not and then he is kind of way. It says that death would start working backward. It could be in an instant. It could have been slowly. He could have chosen to have Aslan come back to life slowly, as if death is working slowly backward. But he didn't. And I'm glad he didn't, because this was pretty exciting and pretty powerful. The control, the hold that death had was gone, and he came back. Now, maybe if it wasn't Aslan, maybe if it was just some other creature coming back to life, maybe then it would have been slow. But I don't think there's anything to hold back Aslan once that power of death was broken. He came back, woo, in a big way. Let's see. Beck says he lived. Oh, yes, thank you. He lived up to the others. Is it because death is immediate? Ooh, good idea, Bella. So death, passing into death, is not maybe a gradual process. Maybe you're guessing. We're thinking. There's a word, surmising. We're kind of tossing around the ideas. We're thinking maybe death itself is an instantaneous moment. So that means the reversing of death, coming back to life, is an instantaneous moment. Good idea, Bella. That's a good thought. Good thought. Thank you. That could be why it was instantaneous and not gradual. All right, so the lion feels his strength coming back. Okay, let's see. Well, we know that, as we saw in the illustration of the front cover of the book, The Girls Dancing with Aslan, there's that whole section where they are tearing around the hilltop, playing, rolling, Aslan is flinging them around, tumbling them, rolling them in the air, always keeping, his claws in. But they have this huge game of romps, I believe is how Lewis explained it. And that's sort of a terminology that's a little bit British, a game of romps. It means horseplay, roughhousing, just getting all your wiggles out and just like a pillow fight. Like you ever have a pillow fight with your friends or your brothers and sisters, and you just you're exhausted afterwards, and it was so much fun, and you're just laughing. Hopefully nobody hit anybody else too hard, and there wasn't any arguing and crying and going to tell your parents or anything like that. It's not like that. It's all the good, exuberant fun that you have, and you just working out your wiggles, working out your giggles, right? So they had just done that. I love that part too. And now we come to this bit, life working. Okay. And Aslan, not at all slacking his pace, rushed straight as a bullet toward it. "The witch is home," he cried. "Now, children, hold tight." Next moment, the whole world seemed to turn upside down, and the children felt as if they had left their insides behind them, for the lion had gathered himself together for a greater leap than any he had yet made, and jumped, or you may call it flying rather than jumping, right over the castle wall. The two girls, breathless but unhurt, found themselves tumbling off his back in the middle of a wide stone courtyard full of statues. Okay, if that whole flying, leaping episode, how do they get there so fast? Because he's so full of energy and he can travel so quickly. And he leaps over the castle wall, which when we arrived there with Edmund, it looks so foreboding, and which means like gloom and doom, and formidable. That's another good word. It looked formidable. To be formidable means it's imposing and very powerful and strong looking, and like you could not defeat whatever this is. So the castle looked foreboding and formidable to Edmund. But Aslan, that's nothing. That's nothing. Right over the walls with two girls on your back. He was over the wall, almost flying. Oh, and that's the end of our session. We get to the end here. Again, I've ended a little bit early. I'm sorry about that. Not giving you your full time. Creepy, formidable, foreboding. Yeah, that's another good word for that. Please keep sending in your questions here while I talk a little bit about making sure that you and your groups are registered with us, that you've communicated with us, because we love doing these camps for you guys. I'm having a great time. Our other presenters love doing this. Signum University wants to make sure that it does its part to help other young readers start to really enjoy books, not just reading chapter by chapter, but really think about the books and think about what the author chooses to do to paint these pictures and to express the text and the lines of the story and the characters and the plot and all those things, but in a really fun way, without homework, without tests, anything like that, because that's the joy of really getting to know literature and growing up to be great, strong readers. And we really want to do our part. So the way that we can do that is offering these reading camps for you guys. And so one way that will enable us to do that is if we can get information about the campers and how you use the program packets and what's working and what you like the best about our supplementary materials, all that kind of stuff. And it also helps us because we might be looking for some support from some bigger organizations who want to support what we're doing with you all, and they can help support us financially. And so, but we can't do that without proof, without data, without information from you all. So please do email us, organizers. Let us know how you're using the materials. Let us know how many kids are participating, and all that information is going to really help us continue to offer even a better program next time. Maybe throughout the year we can offer programs instead of just the summers, and also get some support that we need to continue to do this for you all. So please do make sure that you contact us and connect with us. I've got a few more questions. Let's go ahead and look at those. Oh, these are from Sparrow. Thank you, Sparrow. You always contribute so nicely. What do you think it felt like to ride on Aslan's back? Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Do you guys want to answer? Tell me what you think it felt like. Sparrow wants to know. I want to know. I can tell you what I think it felt like, but we would like to hear from you. Aslan seemed very important and serious. It was surprising to see him playing and dancing with the girls. You're right, Sparrow. He went from Aslan, the person of importance and even power and position. I mean, the Beavers told about those poems about when Aslan comes, things will be made right. When Aslan comes, spring will be here. And yet he took the time to get all his wiggles out and just be just happy to be alive and to be joyful with the girls. So, you know, when Ms. Raimondo was talking about earlier in the chapters how important the sense of community is, and resting and being with others, and taking the time to eat together, all those kinds of things, maybe this is another sign. It's good to celebrate. It's good to spend time with each other, just having fun and expressing joy and being joyful. Sometimes I think that we're kind of supposed to, you know, we can make jokes and we can joke around, but sometimes it's at somebody else's expense. And sometimes people tell you to grow up and stop messing around. But sometimes just joyful play is the best expression, and it's a good thing. So maybe that's what we're meant to see here with Aslan, the two sides of him, and that even this powerful authority kind of person, kind of figure, he's a lion, can express that joy as well. Let's see, another one from Sparrow. She says, I'm a little sad that Peter and Edmund didn't get to play like that, at least so far in the story. You're right, Sparrow. They kind of missed out on that first explosive moment of joy. They're going to have to kind of make do with the stories that Lucy and Susan, I'm sure, would tell them. And I would hope, like you, that maybe in the future, when Aslan would visit, that they would experience that too. I know. It's just, who was there at that moment was they were the ones who got to experience that really precious, amazing moment of joy. You're right, Sparrow. Let's see. What else do we have? Bella says, I like riding a huge horse. Oh, it's like riding a huge horse, except with a softer back, yes, and higher off the ground. Right, right, exactly. It could be like that, the riding part. Very good. Jubilee says, I think it might have felt like cantering on a horse without hearing the hooves clopping. That's true, because his hooves he doesn't have hooves. He has soft, big paws. Have you ever looked like at a zoo? Have you ever been to a zoo and seen a lion or any of those larger cats, and how big their feet are and how silently they can move? I'll betcha that while they tore across the countryside very quickly through all the bushes, maybe he was still silent, you know, with his feet, his large feet. Yes. Well, somehow they managed to hang on. I think, in all honesty, that might have been a little touch of magic right there, that they were able to hang on for that ride and not fall off. Jubilee says, Aslan probably felt better after getting the worst of his plan over. You're right, meaning getting killed by the White Witch, right? Lewis tells us that he felt sad and burdened beforehand. You're right, Jubilee. Good for you. Good remembering. He did. He felt sad and burdened because he knew what he was going to have to go through. And even knowing the other side of it, because presumably we would understand that Aslan knew the deeper magic. He knew what would happen, that death would start working backward. It didn't make doing that, going through that easy. It might have made it easier because he did know he was going to come out on the other side, but golly, it wasn't going to make it easy for him. So sure, coming out on the other side full of life like that, pow. Good point, Jubilee. Good point. Thank you so much. All right, well, we've reached the end of our hour. I want to, of course, invite you back for our last session tomorrow at the same time. Hopefully, Ms. Raimondo will be feeling better. If not, I will be joining you again. And it's been a great delight. And we'll see you then. Please, again, email us questions, comments, connect with us however you like with our email at camp@signumu.org. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.